Hello, I'd like to call to order a special board meeting of the Santa Barbara School Districts for Tuesday, March 1st. We will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance.
And we have translation tonight with Sandra Trujillo. Sandra, would you please introduce yourself?
Good evening. Buenas noches. Mi nombre es Sandra Trujillo y soy la intérprete para la reunión de esta noche. Si alguien necesita de los servicios de interpretación, puede venir a hablar conmigo. Voy a estar localizada en la parte trasera del salón. Gracias.
Gracias a usted. Okay, since it looks like we have a number of people in the audience who might not have attended a board meeting in the past, I just wanted to briefly explain the process we are going to be following. We will begin with the superintendent's report and then follow our agenda for public comments. The public comments that we will be taking early in the meeting will be on items that are under the purview of the board but are not on tonight's agenda if anybody wants to speak on something outside the agenda for this evening. If you would like to speak to one of the agenda items, then you should wait until that agenda item is called, and then we will ask for speakers on that item. If you would like to speak to anything on the consent agenda, we'd like you to speak to it prior to our acting on the consent agenda. Okay? Thank you very much. And we will begin with the superintendent's report.
Well, Board, I know we have pressing business tonight. I have a very brief report. I'm announcing the departure of two of our principals at the end of June. Mark Caprito, principal of Santa Barbara High School, will be leaving our school district at the end of June. Norm Clevenger, principal of San Marcos High School, will be retiring at the end of June. Both of these gentlemen have a lot of years in education. We appreciate their service to our schools and their contribution to the education of our students. And of course, we wish them the best. We've already started the process of finding future leaders for each of these schools. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sarvis. That was very brief. Okay, so do we have public comments at this time that are on items not on our agenda this evening?
We have one public comment, Kate Smith.
You will have 3 minutes.
Annette Cordero, members of the Santa Barbara Board of Education. There is deep-seated and widespread school and government corruption. There is collusion, conspiracy, and cover-up of wrongdoing by taxpayer-paid lawyers. There is severe and rampant retaliation against whistleblowers. Santa Barbara is the perfect storm of injustice, and you can call me Katrina. Today, I went upstairs to submit on the last day an inter-district transfer. My daughter has been in the Santa Barbara school districts her entire life. Yet, because of a mistake on the map, our residence, which is just 10 minutes away from Roosevelt School, everybody knows where I live. I live at the old Sunburst, 3400 Gibraltar Road, just 100 yards from Climbing Rock, 100 yards down from the Skyport. It's in the Santa Barbara School District. There's a mistake on the map. I was disqualified in 2008, illegally, from the school board ballot because Bill Cerrone and his cronies, Annette Cordero as the rep from Santa Barbara School Districts, nobody would change the map mistake. It will be changed now because there's a state investigation of the voter registrar. I have suffered enormous losses from legal abuse by this school district and by taxpayer-paid lawyers, Craig Price, County Council, District Attorney. Please Google legal abuse syndrome. Please Google fraud on the court. We're calling for not only a congressional hearing, but a federal grand jury to investigate the Santa Barbara school districts. My daughter, Emily Rose Smith,
30 seconds.
will be 22 next week. She fractured her ankle because it snows every year on Gibraltar and it gets very icy. I asked for a home hospital. Nobody would respond the whole week. I asked for an emergency IEP. Nobody would respond. I am removing her because it is dangerous
Thank you, Mrs.
for
Smith.
me
Thank you.
to continue to work with this school district.
Okay, Ms.
As you
Smith,
know-
your time is up now.
Yes,
Thank you very
I am
much.
letting you know about my ADA accommodation.
You are out of order at this time. Can you please step away from the podium? Thank you. We will move on to our next item. Our next item is the consent agenda. Do we have any items?
And Board, you see a revision on B4,
Yes.
and you have that on the dais, and it's on the side table as well.
Do any board members have items that they would like to pull from the consent agenda? No. Hearing none? No, I'm sorry, Mr. Herron?
One question, and I did ask it, and I have my answer, but I'd just like to put it on record on B1, where
Yes.
we are giving approval to notice probationary teachers. My question was, it appears that we're giving just a carte blanche approval to give notice to a lot of people, but I found that it's not that many people, and they are very specific people, so it just made me feel better that I knew that I wasn't just voting in blank to let some people go.
Yes, and we do not disclose those names publicly.
Okay. Thank you. Do we have a motion?
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Okay.
Second, we also have one public comment, but I'd like to clarify. It's a Counselor, Sylvina Piera. Did you want to speak to B5, which is what you indicated on your slip, but that's the inter-district open enrollment policy? That's okay, I just want to make sure. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Okay, then I believe we have no speakers on this item, so we've had a motion
We need a second.
and second. Okay.
Call for the question?
Ms. Smith, did you want to speak to this item? We are about to take a vote on this.
Oh, well, I have to speak to
Okay,
that's the inter-district open enrollment.
could you try to take maybe about a minute and a half to speak to this item?
Well, I just wanted to let you know that there are problems with the boundary line. The Board of Supervisors is vested with the responsibility to make sure that the county superintendent has clear lines. However, Santa Barbara school districts have a map, and you can see that Gibraltar Road goes in and out and in and out of the district. And that's a violation of Education Code 35443, which is the leapfrog prohibition. You can't have that. Then, when you ask for the exact addresses, only the addresses of the houses on Gibraltar Road that are inside the district are listed. Everything above 22, 24 are in College School District. So if they try and sell their house, they have to notify
Ms. Smith, I'm
yes.
sorry, I'm going to have to interrupt you. You are not speaking to an item that is...
B5.
Yes, but that is not under the purview of our board. We do not set the boundaries for the district.
No, but I'm talking about intra-district open enrollment, and you have to understand there is a problem. Anybody transferring in the district or out from the district, inter-district or intra-district, you have a problem with Gibraltar Road and houses that think they have a school district 10 minutes away from Roosevelt don't have a school district. So I'm telling you, your boundary lines, you are responsible, not just the county. You are responsible. And I tried to get this across to you several times, that either you attend to the problems, which Michael Gonzalez refused to do, or you become subject to allegations of dereliction of duty.
Okay.
And fraud.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. We now have the motion on the floor. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries 5-0. We are at our action agenda, item C1, approval of reduction in particular kinds of services and adoption of resolution number 2010/11-43.
And this presentation will be made by a combination, I understand, of our interim director of human resources, Jerry Fawcett, and Ann Peak, who's our certificated personnel analyst.
Good evening. I think that's on. As I know you are well aware, we need to make 10 million in cuts, and the education code requires that we notice all certificated staff by March 15th. So what you have in front of you this evening is an approval of reduction in particular kinds of services and adoption of resolution number 2010-11-43 that is a precautionary measure in terms of the worst case scenario we might possibly face. That we don't get the ballot measures, that we don't get unification. This would be the absolute worst. These are notices that can be brought back, but we are required by law to notify these people by March 15th. So I'm asking that you approve the resolution.
Board, let me add to that one of the most difficult things that I do is to sign letters notifying people that they may not have a job. And the legal requirement of having to do so by the middle of March forces us to send out these letters of notification. I know that the board has yet to make final decisions on budget cuts. We have yet to see whether our unification process is successful. We fully believe it will, which will allow us to bring back a lot of positions if we do decide to put those on the table. We haven't seen whether there will be an item on the June ballot yet to extend taxes. If that is successful, we may be able to rescind any cuts that we send out, with the exception of a decrease in student enrollment. And we have to prepare for that one, but we also have to prepare for all of the contingencies that are contained in the next item we'll discuss, which is the second reading of the fiscal solvency plan. And on that list, there is a possibility of any of some $22 million in cuts. So we simply have to, in a preemptive way, prepare for each of those contingencies.
Thank you, Dr. Sarvis. I think all of us hate this, this process, and we've not been able to find a way of dealing with this more humanely, but unfortunately, this is sort of the statutory timeline that we're under. So are there board members who want to comment or ask questions on this item? I believe we do have public comment on this item.
I do have a question, but we could do the public comment first, or? Which would you?
Yes, let's go ahead and take the public comment first.
All right, thank you. We have Shannon Curtis, followed by Ursula Farrell and Marcia Barr. And because we have a lot of speakers this evening, I would like to ask the speakers to all come up and wait. No, go ahead. Yes, please. But I would like the second speaker, Ursula Barr and Ursula Farrell and Marcia Barr. Thank you. You may begin.
Good evening, Dr. Sarvis and board members. I am Shannon Curtis, librarian at Lacombe Junior High, and I want to thank you for all your hard work that you're doing to keep our schools fiscally afloat, so to say. And I'd like to take a moment of your time to respond to the ratio of students to librarians in California as listed in item M of the fiscal solvency plan to reduce the certificated librarians services by 30%. Just a couple points I wanted to make quickly. The California Department of Education model school library standards, which were just adopted, recommend a staffing ratio of 1 credentialed librarian for every 785 students. And also the current national average of school librarians is 1 credentialed librarian for every 906 students. So the ratio of 1 credentialed librarian for every 5,441 students that's mentioned in item M is not really reflective of state or national standards. It's really just a sign of the hard times that education is facing in California. And this type of ratio leaves many schools with libraries staffed at best by clerks or volunteers or not even open at all. And this is not a standard that the Santa Barbara School District would want to emulate. At the current ratio of 1 librarian per 1,368 students, we provide excellent service to our respective schools and an excellent value for the price of 1 credentialed teacher. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Ursula Farrell.
Good evening. My name is Ursula Farrell. I'm a librarian at Goleta Valley Junior High School, and we're here to make the case for a full-time librarian at each site. You've already heard from us via email regarding the excellent value we are to each of our schools for the price of 1 teacher's salary. But since we're talking about dollars and cents tonight, I thought I would like to talk about the district's assets that we manage and what a 30% reduction might look like. First of all, libraries would only be open 3.5 days per week, or the other scenario. And that's not how we like a library to look, that picture at the bottom. That's a stage. That's usually not how it looks in our libraries. Libraries might not be open before school, at lunch, and after school, and definitely not for all of the classes who would like to come in. Secondly, who will take care of these district assets as listed? If our services were cut by 30%, who would asset manage, barcode, check out, and maintain our inventories of textbooks, library materials, and equipment, including computers? Who would do these functions in a timely manner to protect the district's assets? We're all trained in Destiny, which is our asset management software, and it's definitely not something someone could just pop in and out and take care of. These activities are typical of the things that occur every day at our sites and during and outside of normal teaching hours. Which 30% of students and teachers will get left out? At this point, I'd like to turn the rest of this over to Marcia Barr, the librarian from Santa Barbara High School.
Can we restart the clock, please?
Thank you. Good evening. Hundreds of students come to each of our libraries each day, beginning at 7:30 in the morning through to 4 o'clock in the afternoon. We are available to all students. If our positions are cut by 30%, what will happen to the instructional day? Will some classes miss our help and experience for the entire school year? Will the library be locked and darkened to all 1.5 days per week? Many of us can barely fit all the classes into the library during the instructional day with 5 days a week. If our positions are cut by 30%, the impact will be deeply felt by students and teachers alike. In regard to reducing library services, equal access is lost. In other words, Less is not more. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mrs.
Thank
Barr.
you.
We have another speaker who submitted to speak on this item, although library technicians are covered under D1. So would Jane Wormsley like to speak on the librarians or the library technicians? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, board members? Ms. Deacon, I think you had a comment or a question on this?
I did have a question for Ms. Peak. We see a number of teachers, librarians, nurses, all kinds of people on this list. Could you briefly tell us how you arrived at which positions were identified?
I'll be glad to. Well, a bulk of this was identified in the fiscal solvency plan as the worst-case scenario for reaching that 10 million. From that, there's a lot of different things. One of those is cutting the credits from 240 to 220, so that impacts our electives. One of the other things is that we're utilizing a different staffing ratio this year, which will equate to about 11 FTE across the board of positions that will be cut. What I did, to give a very brief synopsis of it, is we ran a report out of Aries. We counted periods to determine how many sections were in each subject area, and then we took a percentage reduction of each of those subject areas. So.
Okay, so these different groups were arrived at in different ways depending on which
Yes.
part of the fiscal solvency
Right,
plan they
that's
fell
correct.
into.
There were certain things identified in the fiscal solvency plan that were complete in terms of they were a certain sect of services that would definitely be cut based on whether it's we're cutting nurses or changing ratios for counselors or administrators, different things of that sort.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Anything else?
Any additional questions or comments?
Can I sit down?
Nope. Okay, this is on our action agenda. We need to have a motion on this item.
I will move that we approve the reduction in particular kinds of services and adopt resolution number 2010/11-43.
Is there a second?
I will second that.
Okay. Any further discussion?
I would just like to make the comment that I'm voting on this on the basis this is the very, very worst-case scenario, and our hope is that we won't be close to this.
Exactly.
Yes, and I hope that that's clear. I think it is clear, that this is not what we hope to have to do.
Exactly.
This is just giving ourselves the absolute most, or sort of worst-case scenario. If it came to this, we would have started the process at the appropriate time so that we could follow through on it. But we are, even though times are tough, we are hoping it won't be this bad.
Amen.
So,
One other question. Do you have a guesstimate of how many FTEs this encompasses total?
Well, it's going to impact probably close to 100 people if every single one of these things had to occur. And that's because some people only work, say, 40% position. Others work full-time.
Okay, thank
that
you.
type of thing.
Let me emphasize again that not every one of these things will occur.
Yes, that's our
So,
hope.
so we don't really know the bottom line, and we won't for a number of weeks.
Yeah.
And then we'll go through the process of rescinding as we're successful in these other operations.
okay, Ms. Deacon?
Just to emphasize the magnitude, though, this is, you're talking about 100 with the temporary teachers. That pushes it way beyond that. I mean,
Yes.
I counted
Yeah.
103 on the temporary
Yeah,
list.
that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. That brings us to the conference agenda and the item that probably most of us are here to discuss tonight, the second reading of the fiscal solvency plan. And Dr. Sarvis, I'll have you
Yes.
introduce Mr. Smith.
Deputy Superintendent Eric Smith will present this report.
Thank you, Dr. Sarvis. What the board has in front of them is the second reading of Phase 5 of the Fiscal Solvency Plan. Although we've agendized it for action, we don't anticipate that the board will take final actions until March 8th, but obviously you have the latitude to do so if you're so inclined. We've taken comments from the last meeting from board members, and we've incorporated those into the revision of the plan. Some of the comments are additions, some are clarifications, some are editorial, and we'll walk through those. I think rather than go through the plan line by line like we did at the last meeting, I'd like to call your attention to the underlined areas, and that's the underlined area actually designated changes from the last reading on February 22nd. And then also, I'd like to remind the board that several of these items are negotiable. And once again, I caution the board that in the event that we select negotiable items and we're unable to negotiate the implementation of those items, we'll have to select alternative items in a like dollar value. So just wanted to bring that caution to the board. In the event that we can't negotiate some of the things that are negotiable in the plan, we'll need to have a backup plan. So first and foremost, I would draw your attention to page 6. We had a little bit of discussion relative to Measure H, and actually Measure H potentially picking up another 3.5 FTEs of ninth grade class size reduction. All I have here is kind of an editorial comment. I'm sharing with the board that that's what we heard from Measure H. Obviously, the board ultimately makes the decision in terms of how they interpret it. I just thought it was interesting because we've had so much discussion about ninth grade class size reduction, and I thought I would offer that. Secondly, in item B on page 6, we tried to provide some clarification relative to programs that were embedded in the Tier 3 categorical transfer in the event that we swept the remaining 70%. As you can see, we've pulled out such things as the YSS counselors, the district gate program, campus safety assistants at the junior high, CalSafe, the elementary district librarian and music teacher, director of student services. All of those weren't at board request, but kind of based on comments we got from the board and kind of the comments we had administratively, we pulled them out. Obviously, we realized that the board could put some of those back in, so I'm just bringing that to your attention as well. I clarified, I believe for one board member earlier today, I had a question relative to what was included in Exhibit B. And when you look at all those teachers, I talked to Ann Peak about that, the majority of those teachers are either being bought by site categorical money to reduce class size or to provide additional offerings, electives per se. So obviously we can't give you names there, but I think that provides a little bit more clarity. It's not the best format, but it's what we're working with. If I can draw your attention to the next change, which would be on item 11. There was a question about what we're spending on outside contract nurses, and you can see there on page 11, which is item M, we're using a service provided through Maxim right now, and we estimate that we're going to spend about $236,000 in outside contract nursing services this year alone. And that's a wholesale addition from the last plan. The board also requested for some clarifying language relative to ninth grade English if we went not from 25 to 35 to 1, but from 25 to 1 to 30 to 1. You can see if we did that, the savings would be reduced to about $274,645, and that's on item Q on page 12.
Mr. Smith, could you also touch on item L at the top of page 11? The numbers changed there?
I don't believe so. Did they change from the last plan? Because usually if there was strikeout, in this particular case, it was more of an editorial
Maybe that was
comment.
my error, but I thought I had different numbers.
I don't think so. I mean, we tried to, unless we had some miscommunication between,
I think they did actually change.
Yeah.
did the number of FTEs?
It was a reduction of about $6,000 in the elementary district, about $92,000 in the secondary district, for a total of almost $100,000.
Same FTEs. I wonder if...
Yeah, that's why I wondered
I
what-
wonder if it actually, we were using a 10-month figure, we revised it to a 9-month figure.
Well, that's what I was wondering, because nothing else seemed to change,
Yeah.
and that was my question.
Let me see if we can, as you probably noticed that Julie Nemus is here working the spreadsheet because Meg's actually in training, but she's actually online with Meg right now, and I'll have her shoot her an email and see if that's what was the case.
Okay, great.
Because we're actually putting this portion of the plan together. We were all remote. I was in Texas, she was someplace else, Robin was someplace.
That's good. We'll put our internal
Okay,
auditor
thank
on
you.
it right now.
Exactly, so we'll get to the bottom of that. I'm presuming that's probably it, but we'll have Meg clarify that. Once again, on item S, which is on page 12, we looked at, rather than increasing the ratio from 25 to 1 to 30 to 1, from 25 to 30 to 35 to 1, which actually increased it to a savings of $133,714. And then we had a lot of clarification on item T, which Robin is credited with in terms of the revisions. She actually even included a full-blown table that talked about UC requirements versus, ed code requirements. And I probably should wait and have the board come back and ask questions about this because it is kind of meaty. And in the event there are questions, Robin can address those. Also at the board's request, item U, which is on page 14, was looking actually at a reduction of co-curricular stipends. What we did was looked at the total amount that we're spending, which is roughly $833,000, and that list is attached as Exhibit D. If we did a 30% reduction in those stipends, it'd be about $249,905. Once again, you'd have to eliminate the programs, not the stipends. The stipends follow the programs because the stipends are contained in the contract, but if the programs don't exist, there's no need to give the stipend. Everybody follow that one? Okay.
Actually, could you say that one more time? You're saying we would have to eliminate the programs?
You'd have to eliminate the programs that the stipends are associated or
Okay.
affiliated with.
So when you give us these options of the 20, 10
You would
or
have to identify the
20%.
programs on Exhibit D that you would do away with.
Okay.
On item 14, page 14, item W, we looked at additional furlough days for classified staff. Obviously, we have a continuum here. If we mirrored what the proposal is for certificated staff, kind of in a worst-case scenario, you can see it's significant. For 5 furlough days, it would equal about $1.9 million, but once again, it's a negotiable item. Kind of a corollary to that on page 16 is item X, which is implement administrative furlough days. We started with the assumption that admin's already taking 2 furlough days, so we actually looked at taking an additional 8 to bring it up to 10. That'd be $189,343. I want to make sure I'm reading that correct. That's correct. We made some corrections to item Y on page 15, which is replacing health assistants, nurses, and contracted nurses and place LVNs in there. You can see that has been done in other districts, most notably Santa Maria High School District. That would be a savings of about $514,000. And then, per the board's request, we actually identified an administrative position at the district office, or will identify administrative position for a savings of $51,243. So that is pretty much comprises all the revisions to the plan. If you have questions or comments relative to the revisions or the original plan, we'll try and answer those now.
I had one very quick clarification, and then we may want to hear from our public comments first. And that was just on page 15, item X, Mr. Smith, and I think it's clarified later in the chart, but I just want to double check, that where it says, alternatively, the staff has quantified a savings of 3 furlough days, does that mean 3 additional days in addition to the 2?
That's correct.
Okay, okay. Thank you. Okay, I believe we have, is it 15? We have 17 speakers who would like to speak to this item. Our agenda states that we usually will have a total time allowed for public comment on any one item is 20 minutes. However, in the interest of making sure that all the people who are here get a chance to speak, I would like to ask the board's indulgence in allowing each speaker to have 2 minutes to speak. Okay, that will take us over our limit, but still give people a chance to speak. So at this point, I'm going to close the comments. So if anybody has not submitted a speaker slip, this is the time to do it. Okay. Okay, then I'm going to declare the speakers closed, and we will give each speaker 2 minutes to speak to this item.
First speaker, Nicole Montero, followed by Silvina Perea, followed by Paul Rooney.
I'd like to thank you all for letting me speak today. And my name is Nicole Montero, and I'm a senior at Santa Barbara High School. And I'm a teen parent, and I am very thankful and grateful for the CalSafe program. And I can truly admit that I wouldn't be graduating this year without them. And I would like you guys to please consider on voting to keep the program next year for the rest of the girls, so they are allowed to graduate as well as I am. Thank you.
Good evening, members of the board, district administration. And in response to a question with regards to the life of a week's, how do counselors manage their time in given a week? So counselors average 215 schedule changes for the spring semester alone at Dos Pueblos High School, leveling teacher contracts, placing students in appropriate English and math level classes, making elective class changes, board changes, special ed placement modifications, etc. Daily, we manage 20 to 30 plus emails, addressing concerns or questions from parents, students, teachers, or community representation. Daily, we average 8 to 10 voicemail messages. This seems so silly, folks, we're telling you this. Daily, we average 20 to 30 student-parent contacts each day, and we have ledgers to prove that, although they have student names, so we can't show you that. The level of counseling services could not be achieved without maintaining the current student-counselor ratio, nor could it be achieved without the support of exceptional counselor secretary, Denise Irwin. Counselors work daily toward achieving several board-focused goals for student achievement. Board-focused goal 1.3, every school will significantly increase participation of underrepresented students in advanced programs. 1.4, all schools will increase number of students and underrepresented students who are eligible for UCCSU. On January 12th, the board received a report which demonstrates the following gains at DP. We achieved similar school ranking of 9. We achieved an API score of 816. We increased participation of underrepresented students in advanced level classes.
30 seconds.
If the board approves to increase student counselor ratios, we run the risk of losing critical gains that students have made. It will further widen this current student achievement gap. Equally important, students will be impacted by the reduction in support from counselors in addressing the challenges of academic, personal, social, and career development that today's youth bring to school every day. Thank you.
Thank you. Paul Rooney, followed by Deborah Pentland, followed by Jane Wolmsley.
Once again, I thank you for allowing me to speak. I have 5 points tonight. I'm going to make it real quick. One point is fairness. Year after year, certificated and managers receive notices and come back in the fall. We don't. The classifieds don't. This has led to inequity, and it does not solve the internal budget crisis the district faces. They keep hiring back the costlier staff and balances the budget on our backs. Secondly, we need an assurance that for every certificated or manager that receives a notice, and comes back, we come back one for one. Work will not get done if library techs are reduced. Libraries will be closed during hours they are not there. If health assistants cut, only basic first aid will be done by non-health assistants. If groundspeople cut, the properties will look unkempt and wild. Custodians cut, yield dirty, unsanitary areas. Williams Act complaints. Number 4, there will be no contracting out or volunteers doing the work of those laid off or reduced. It's the law. 5, and I don't mean any disrespect, I think management is bloated. There are useless positions that can be consolidated or outright eliminated. Just to clarify, classifieds have an ongoing furlough day. They've had that for the last 3 years. I have great respect for all administrators and time and effort raising their pay, but with all the education that accumulates in the district, why are we in this predicament? I humbly request your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. As the critical decisions are made impacting our students and their family, it is critical that you have accurate information about health services in the school district and the scope of practice of who may perform services required by federal and state law. It states, the governing board of any school district shall give diligent care to the health and physical development of students and may employ properly certified persons to work, CEC 49400. In Section 504 of the Vocational Rehab, Title II of the American Disabilities Act, and of the IDEA, guarantee the right of pupils to receive health services, including specialized health care procedures and medication at school, during school and before and after all school programs. Under these acts, require that only credentialed school nurses can provide these services in all of our school sites. These services include health assessments for IEP students and medically fragile students, developing and revising health plans to meet changing health needs of students, developing medical 504 accommodation plans, developing the specialized health procedures of physicians for identified students. We participate as a member of the individual education plan meetings for special education students with health issues. We provide training to all unlicensed and licensed, including LVN, RN, and Maxim staff providing health care services. This is
30
mandated.
seconds.
Delegate the level of supervision for all licensed and unlicensed, and supervise the unlicensed and licensed. This is the law, whether it be LVN, RN. Our health assistants, if we replace our health assistants with LVN, you will increase your cost. There's only 3 school sites that it would be advantage to. The rest, you would increase your cost. We have, over 5 years, have recommended several times to have a floating nurse to take care of the critical care. So I just want to say we would like to come and offer you recommendations for cuts that don't hurt the children and their families.
Jane Wormsley.
Good evening. I've been a library technician with the school district, Santa Barbara School District, for 20 years and must once again make a plea to avoid cuts to our program. Schools are collaborative in nature, every position supporting and enhancing the instructional experience for our students. The library is the educational and cultural center of each school, supplying vital services ranging from textbook and library book checkout to student research support using books and databases. Librarians and library technicians work as a team to support each student and teacher on campus. Our duties as library technicians include tracking expensive textbooks and library books, including sending out letters, making phone calls, collecting and depositing money for lost or damaged materials, saving our district taxpayers thousands of dollars. At some school sites, library technicians receive, inventory, property, label, and distribute equipment, including computers, LCD projectors, document cameras, DVD players, and CD players. Additionally, the library staff is now maintaining some of the audiovisual equipment since the facilities and maintenance staff was cut last year. We generate requisitions for new library books and textbooks and workbooks and then process them when they arrive. We stay familiar with new acquisitions to the library so we can help students find a good read at an appropriate reading level. We are expert book vendors extending the life of both texts and library books. Along with credentialed librarians, the technicians support the teaching staff at each site, processing and tracking teacher support materials. We assist home hospital teachers with needed materials for home tutoring. As a team, the library staff keeps the library open before school, at lunch, after school, and after school, where many students come to work on research papers and do homework. So many important services will be curtailed if hours and positions at our library are cut. All our jobs are important, and we don't want to lose any members of our team, especially after the last few years of painful cuts. Thank you.
Eric Nielsen, followed by Abe Jahade, followed by Nan Verkade, followed by Dan Feldhaus.
Hi, my name is Eric Nielsen. I'm the head counselor at San Marcos High School, also the department chair. And I've come tonight to let you know about specific contacts as it pertains to counselors and the counseling department. In the past 3 years at San Marcos High School, we've been cut from 7 counselors to 4.6 counselors. That's a total of 33%. Counselor and student ratios have risen from 300 to 1 to 430 to 1 over the same period. The audacious proposal of a 680 to 1 caseload will have obvious and dramatic effects and impact on kids. But tonight specifically, I want to discuss the number of students that come in and make contact with counselors over an annual period. In the counseling office at San Marcos, when students come in, they sign a sheet and it says a personal contact, a counseling or a college-related contact, or an academic contact. In the period between August 2010 and February 2011, counselors' contacts at San Marcos High School were 3,524. That's a 31 student average per day of simply counseling contacts with students. This does not include group contacts, which include Royal University Club meetings, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade nights, financial aid classroom information workshops, UC, CSU common application workshops, AB 540 nights, AVID nights, parent university nights, ELAC nights, PSAT nights, RISE four-year plan workshops, and RISE senior panel workshops for student success. Of the
30 seconds.
Of the group contacts, we have, between that same period, 3,460 contacts. Also, we do academic at-risk counselors with a specific focus. Of those between the same period, 350 contacts. If you amateurize that and put it in an annual number scheme, with that average of 31, you're looking at counseling individual student contacts at 6,004. Group contacts, academic at-risk contacts for group at 6,750, and lastly, at-risk at 650 for a total of 13,404 student contacts. Thank you.
Abe Jahadami, followed by Nan Verkade, followed by Dan Feldhaus. 2 minutes.
The three of us will just come up together and we'll just take 2 minutes.
So the reason we're here is for the athletic stipends, and we just want to give you guys some information. And from there, we realize you have a really tough job, and you've always been extremely supportive to all 3 of us, and we want to make sure that you understand that. All coaches make less than a minimum wage. They are the lowest paid employees of the district. Our rough average estimate is the walk-on coach is $4 to $5 an hour. Athletics saves the district money. For example, a football coach has approximately 100 athletes, and they take them for the year. The cost of putting those athletes into classes would mean 3 periods of teacher time if they were not with the coach. Multiply this by the number of athletes and walk-on coaches, the district would need 4 or 5 full-time teachers per school. So that would be 15 teachers possibly. On campus, coaches actually save the district money. Our coaches that work on campus, when they have to leave for a coaching event, they pay out of their trust fund for them missing their class. The district does not pay money for them being absent that day or a couple of periods. And The practice, they spend hundreds of hours at the practices and games and tournaments, and their pay is a little bit better than the walk-on coaches, about $5 to $6 an hour maximum. They're great role models for the kids. We have examples of one boy that works. He goes to school and maintains a 3.0 average. He plays a sport, and all of his money goes to his mom and his sister for their housing and their food. And when we asked him why he was able to do those kind of things, he said, my coach told me to just keep pushing
Got
hard.
about 20 seconds.
Push through.
But I'm going to give you a little bit more if there's three of
Okay.
you up there.
Push through and you'll get there. A normal high school teacher has a student for a year. Most of our coaches have the students for 4 years, becoming a major impact in their lives. The coach and team become their extended family and have a profound influence in their lives. Now, what we're asking is for the $4 or $5 an hour for those guys to stay there. And I know that you guys have to cut things, there's no question about it. We're just hoping that the coaches can stay with what they've been getting before. You have any questions of us? This is on bright green because the Dons won in PKs today and they're going to the CIF finals. So that's the reason you have bright green.
Go Dons!
We'd like to thank you again for all your support you've always given to our athletic programs. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Liz Kristen, followed by Michelle Melendez, followed by Augustine Popoka.
Hi, thank you for your time. My name is Liz Kristen. I'm a school nurse in Santa Barbara School District. I've worked here for 15 years. I just want to speak to the idea of reducing our school nurse staffing to include only one credentialed school nurse for 21 sites. Replacing the health assistants with LVNs does not eliminate the need for the credentialed school nurse. It simply increases the ability of the site personnel to provide direct nursing services. The proposal to keep only one credentialed nurse to oversee the health office staff would put an unreasonable expectation on that one nurse. They would be expected to perform the services currently being provided by 6.1 FTEs at 21 sites, due to the fact that an LVN cannot perform the duties of a credentialed school nurse. This unmanageable job would include, but not be limited to, completing health assessments of all students having a triennial, and this year was approximately 650 triennials in our district. They would be required to train staff at 21 sites to provide tasks such as medication administration, EpiPen administration, diabetic care, and the delivery of specialized healthcare services as prescribed by the student's physician. They would also have to verify medication orders, which we have 489 medication orders in our district this year. They would need to conduct a vision and hearing screening program, which we provide to students in grades K to 5, 8, and 10th grade. They would need to complete the hearing and vision referrals for all the students that
30
fail.
seconds.
They would conduct immunization program, which for the coming school year will include new immunization requirements for all students in grades 7 through 12, as well as the ongoing requirement for all students entering our district for the first time and kindergarten students. They also would need to assess, implement, and revise specialized health care plans for medically fragile students, including students with diabetes, seizures, severe allergies, and asthma. And this year, there are 398 care plans in place.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
Michelle Melendez, followed by Augustine Popoka.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen of the board. Excuse me. I wanted to speak to the board about proposed cuts to the nursing staff. I am the current lead nurse for the Santa Barbara School District. However, I'm still the district nurse assigned to 2 elementary schools. I would like to speak to the difficulty of managing both roles since I am currently in that position. As a lead nurse, I coordinate the health services for our department, including but not limited to coordinating the hearing and vision screenings, coordinating our first aid and CPR program, coordinating the immunization compliance, including the new Tdap booster requirement implemented by the state. I coordinate health office documentation in our health offices, the scoliosis screening, the health team response to current issues. Such issues have been in the past the avian flu response, swine flu response, and pertussis outbreaks that we have had in our schools. I am constantly reorganizing my day from these lead nurse duties to attend to the needs of the students I serve. The needs of the students will always supersede the needs of the department. The needs arise in the form of, as previously addressed by Liz Kristen, the health assessment for the IEPs as required by law, attending those IEPs, developing, revising, and implementing care plans, as well as medical 504s, contacting physician offices for concerns regarding students' health, counseling parents, staff, and the students on their health needs. All of these can only be done by a credentialed school nurse. If we reduce to one credentialed school nurse, she will have to work with 692 special education
30
students in
seconds.
elementary, 1,165 in secondary, as well as all the previous procedures listed by Liz Kristen. This is unrealistic for one person to accomplish. I respectfully request the board reconsider this impossible staffing request and think of the health of our students. Students deserve to have equal care at school and at home. Students with health conditions deserve equal access to education, the same as students with academic disabilities are entitled access to an education. Thank you.
Thank you. Augustine Popoca, followed by Alvarado Cervantes, followed by Javier Rios.
Hi, I'm Antonio Ramirez. I'm speaking on behalf of Ishmael and my colleagues behind me, and we are asking for you to keep him at least for the rest of this school year and possibly next school year. Before Ishmael came, I didn't even think about college, but he took us on field trips to UCSB. He's also helped us with some relaxation techniques and that Tai Chi. And we also did some creative writing and poetry slam with him. And he also brings different guest speakers to help us apply for college, financial aid. Right. He's also thrown a barbecue for us where we bring food and he's just there to supervise us. Yeah, he actually gave us his personal phone number to contact him if we need to. He said if we ever get in any trouble with the law or just need to talk to him. Or mentoring.
He's also been showing us how there's different ways to apply for college and that it's not impossible to go. I'm kind of nervous right now, so it's my first time. But yeah, I've been learning a lot from him, and after our high school, I'm going to probably apply to CC and then probably go to university, and that's pretty much it. I'm not into the money, I just want the knowledge, and that's just me.
Before he came, basically, none of us had in mind that we wanted to go to city college or, continue school after high school. And once he came, we all felt like high school wasn't just where we were going to stop. He actually helped us to continue and open up our minds, saying that education after high school is important, basically. And personally, I always wanted to go USC, and I never thought I was ever going to step foot in that campus until Ishmael came to school. And he actually took us on a field trip to UCLA also and USC, and to me that's it impacted my life a lot. So I just asked for you guys to let him keep his job.
Did any of the rest of you want to speak?
I'm Adrian. I've been with Ismael 2 years. Before him, I don't know where I'll be going, but he's giving us that little push, that encouragement to go head to college or head for university. So he's helping us with all that. So I want you guys to let him keep here for another years or more.
I would like to add one more thing, that every time we meet with him, he also asks us how we're doing and how our week's been too.
That's first, basically.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you for coming and speaking.
Okay, Kevin Gleason, that's a tough act to follow, but I know you're up to it. Followed by Rosa Maria Poyan and Maribel Trujillo.
Thanks for letting me speak tonight. I know we're in difficult times, and I just want to talk on behalf of the arts. I'm the department chair in the art department at Dos Pueblos. Currently, we have 5 teachers. We have the last remaining ceramics program in town. We teach photography, digital art, color and design, photography, freehand drawing, printmaking, sculpture, and then I also teach the IB visual arts class. And we have many of our students go on to pursue art for a living. Already this year, we've had 8 students win scholarships. Some of my past students, just to tell stories of the opportunities art offers them. Jessica Cooper is now teaching at Otis. She's the head illustrator for LA Weekly and has sold out shows and galleries all the time in Santa Monica. Saul Espinosa first came into my class to perfect his graffiti skills and now is working for DreamWorks, and there's a major motion picture coming out next year, and he's the chief concept illustrator. Dawn Lonis is an anthropologist who realized that she has her PhD now. She realized that artists are needed because when you dig up ruins, you need someone to draw what they look like before they were broken. Many of our students are key players on the Engineering Academy because they have the ability, the artists have the ability to take complex mechanical ideas and visions and dreams and make them concrete so other people can see them. I'm not sure if the board fully realizes the effect of lowering from the 240 necessary units to graduate to 220. That equals basically 2 entire years of elective classes for students. That means 31 elective sections at our school. Already in my 12 years teaching, I've seen our fashion design, auto shop programs disappear. Our culinary arts and wood shop are hanging by a thread. Our junior high feeder programs have dwindled down to 1/3 of the year from what used to be 2-year programs. I'm worried that the school will just be staffed with enough teachers to let kids have the bare minimum, which is 1 year, and it would just decimate our program. We'd have no more advanced art. And
thank you.
Yes.
Rosa Maria Poyan, followed by Maribel Trujillo.
Good evening, Board of Directors. I'm here to support Ismael Huerta to keep his job. He's done a lot in the community with the youth, especially with his families, and every time we need him, no matter what time it is, he's always there for the youth and for the families and supports the family all the time. And if he lost his job, I don't know what the youth is going to do without him. Thank you.
Thank you. Is Maribel Trujillo here? No. Okay, we'll go on to Mercedes Sandoval. No. Okay.
Are Ms. Trujillo or Ms. Sandoval in the back room? No? No, okay. I believe that concludes our public comment. We had a number of slips that were submitted after I closed the public comment. So those of you who, if I did not call your name, it means your slip was submitted after we had closed public comment. I would invite you to submit any comments that you might want to make in writing to the board, and we will be sure to read through all comments that are submitted to us. So thank you very much. I will turn it back over to the board members then for questions or comments on this item.
Madam President, we got clarification on why.
Oh, thank you very much, Mr. Smith.
Actually, the lead nurse was pulled out of that number.
The lead nurse was pulled out?
That's correct.
Okay. Okay, great, thank you.
Madam President?
I believe that might have been at item L. Oh, okay, thank you.
Madam President?
Yes. Mr. Herron?
How many additional speakers were there?
Five.
Can we each give them 1 minute?
I am okay with that if board members are fine with that. Okay, but if we are going to do that, we probably should allow the two who just wanted to add their names to also add theirs.
Well, that you also have to include Lane Wheeler then, because he was late also. But those you have, and I cut everybody else as we hear, but.
Yes.
Whatever.
Come forward, please.
1 minute. No, when she calls you.
Liliana, is it, I'm sorry, the name is erased a little bit. Looks like Corbin. Is there Liliana?
That's it.
Okay, no, if there's no Liliana, I'll move on. Brandy Alonso. Oh, Liliana is coming? Okay. Brandy Alonso. Alana Padilla. I'd like to have all of these people come forward if they want to speak. Lexi Simptons, I'm sorry, his name is a little bit tricky to read. Lexi, Daniel Cano, Sylvia Gutierrez, Alicia Spear, and Olga Mesa, and Lane Wheeler. Okay, so if you would like to speak, please, if you try to limit it to under a minute if you can, and we will try to hear as many of you as we can. Thank you. Is this Liliana?
Yeah, I'm
Okay, thank you.
The YSS program is important to me because I've always have a place to go when I need advice or support. Without it, I would have probably made some bad decisions, but I'm thankful this program is in my school because it's actually helped me a lot. But yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Brandy Alonso?
No. Lexi.
Lexi, okay.
The YSSA is important to me because I've been through a lot and like I always have somewhere to go to when I'm going through rough times, and without it, I probably would have been in really bad situations, especially with maybe even the law, but it's just always helped me out.
Is Brandy here? Okay, Brandy? And then Alana?
Well, I'm Daniel.
Oh, I'm sorry, Daniel, okay.
Yeah. And I want to speak on behalf of YSS. YSS is a good program, you know, gives us, the youth, advice, gives us a place to go when we need help, you know, and it's a good program.
I want to talk for YSS as well. My freshman year, I got involved with YSS, and I was in the RY class. And all these years, when I've had problems with family and at home, I've been able to go talk with them, and they've always given me support and advice, and they've just always been really there for us, and we've been able to rely on them. And overall, it's just a really good program and experience for everyone, and it just keeps you going on the right path.
My name's Alicia, and I was involved in YSS in 8th grade with Kira, and I was going through a lot with my family and my mother and getting really behind, almost not even graduating, and Kira helped me. She stayed after school with me and helped me finish the things that I needed to do to make sure that I succeed and get through and graduate and walk. I have all A's and a 4.0 now, and I am succeeding, and she's always keeping track on me and making sure that I'm doing good, that I'm succeeding and going to be able to go to university when I graduate. And I think that it should stay because it's a really good opportunity to make sure that you get on track and to make sure that you have a great, amazing future. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for speaking. I believe that Alana is not here, is that correct? Okay. Then Sylvia Gutierrez.
Hi, here I am again. I want to thank you all. I know the work you have is grueling and painful, but I do want to say that I would like the board to please read your emails from the health assistants regarding the medically fragile that we care for, starting at kindergarten with asthmatics, even diabetics. And I know it's a tough job,
understand, but we hope that you really consider the children with the medical needs and their parents. I have a question on the furlough days for classified. There's two types of classified. There's classified that are in the schools, and then there's classified that are confidential. Does this W cut include the furlough days for the classified at the district office?
It would include all classified, including district office, but it would not include confidential employees, which I believe there's only 8 in the district.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. Good luck to you all.
Okay, Olga Mesa, followed by Lane Wheeler.
Good evening. Alicia is my granddaughter, and 2 years ago when her mother left to Texas and Alicia stayed here in my care and I went to the school, I was told that she wasn't going to graduate, she was going to walk with her 8th grade class, and she would probably have to go to summer school. Well, YSS was there to support her. Kira, like she said, was there keeping her after school, making sure that her homework was completed, and she was able to graduate with her class. And now 2 years later, like she said, at San Marcos High School, she's getting a 4.0, and now she's back mentoring in the same program that gave her the support that she needed when she was in trouble. In this day and age in Santa Barbara, we are slowly but surely not supporting our kids. There's a lot of programs that are very, very good for our kids. I grew up in Santa Barbara. This is my hometown. This is, I love Santa Barbara. But we also need to start taking care of our kids. These kind of programs are invaluable, and I hope that you take into consideration that we keep things like this going for our kids, because they're our future, and they're our future citizens of Santa Barbara. Thank you.
Thank you for allowing us to all add our comments. Lane Wheeler, Santa Barbara Teacher Association. I know at last week's board meeting there was a direction from the board to look at sharing cuts equitably across the classified, certificated, and administrative. And there certainly have been a number of administrative cuts at the site levels. But I was fairly amazed to see item Z with a $51,000 position at the district level. And when we talk about equity, I'm just not seeing the equity there. So I would encourage you to continue to drive home that point. I'd like to thank you for some of the astute comments you made last week in getting really to the core of some of these issues in terms of determining how opinions were presented to you and included in this document, because we know that there's a number of errors that either whether they be intentional or unintentional, but I hope you're starting to hear the impact that some of these have, and for you all to make good decisions, I think you need to continue to ask those hard questions, and I would encourage you to do that. And with that, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. That concludes public comment. Board members, questions and/or comments from board members on this item? Mr. Herron?
Just what is going to be the process? What's the plan to get from A to Z tonight, and what are we looking for?
I'll let Mr. Smith address this as well. My hope is that the board will discuss these. If you have further items, if you need further breakdowns on these, you need further information on any of these items, that you will express that tonight, because we'll be coming back to our next meeting in 1 week's time, and it will be decision time. At that point in time, we would expect you to go through, well, we could prescribe a process, but we would expect you to narrow down those choices, then go through the process of prioritizing those so that as we're able to rescind any of these, we would know which items would come back first. There are also a number of items that would need to be negotiated. My guess is that, as in the past, those would be offset by items that would be cuts, so that it's clear that if those are not negotiated successfully, that we would proceed with those cuts. But primarily tonight, it's for you to have any additional discussion, to ask for any additional information, to ask for any additional splits on these. There might be some middle ground on any number of these items where we could pull back some but not the full distance. As you see the worksheet on page 16, excuse me, you see a number of items that have lowest and middle, and a number of those are the same amount because there was really only a lowest and then a highest. And if there's any middle ground on these, or you want to craft these in any other ways, or us to craft these in any other ways, then we're hoping that you would express that to us tonight. Mr. Smith?
I would just echo what Dr. Sarvis said, although I would look at it more as a threefold approach. First, identifying, the $10 million in cuts that could include potentially negotiated items. Then alternatively, $10 million in cuts that don't include negotiated items. And then the third prong would be basically setting up a restoration plan, probably in 3 tiers, because depending on the scenarios that actually come to light, you might be able to restore 1/3 of that list or 2/3 of that list, or potentially 100% of the list. So obviously that doesn't all need to be done tonight, but I think that we'd probably make good work if we could, I hate to use this term, the low-hanging fruit, deal with that. So I'll refrain. I see Kate shaking her head, so I'm going to refrain from using that. So in any event, I guess the items that, I don't know, give me another metaphor, So in any event, do what we can get done tonight, knowing that we're going to have to do, the majority of it next week.
If I could just chime in with that. First of all, there is no low-hanging fruit. We picked all of it a long time ago. So at this point, everything is painful. So my sense is that next week we will have to become prepared to make the really, really difficult decisions, hoping, perhaps against hope, that we won't actually have to follow through on many of them, that circumstances between now and July will change enough that we will not have to address $10 million. However, realistically, we will be looking at cuts no matter what. It'll just be a matter of how drastic they will have to be. So next week we need to come prepared to make those cuts. I think one of the things that we might that I would certainly hope we could do tonight is if anybody has any additional items that you would like to have added to this list, like to have staff research, bring back, et cetera, for us, that should get put on the table tonight so that we are prepared for it by next week. If we bring it to next week's meeting, it may be too late because we have to make decisions next week. Okay. So if there are any additional items, let's put them out there. Let's get staff to act on them. Let's get the numbers that we need so that we will be prepared. Then beyond that, tonight I think is just a chance for clarification, any additional questions, there are any other ways we want the staff to look at it. This is really our chance to clarify so we have all the numbers we're going to need in order to make our decisions. So with that said, do board members have any questions or suggestions or clarifications? Mr. Herron?
I have a couple right off the bat. I got an answer from Mr. Smith today on it, but I'd like to ask it publicly. In your mid-year adjustments, fiscal 2010, 2011, there's about $1.5 million of immediate, or this year, but one-time expenditures.
Correct.
But
savings, you mean?
Savings. But it seems that doesn't affect the 10 million number.
No.
That defies logic somehow.
Not really, because the $10 million is an operating, or what we refer to as a structural deficit, which is the ongoing imbalance between revenues and expenditures. The one-time savings would improve fund balance, but you would burn through $1.5 million in a year, and your problem would just reappear after the year. So once again, using the analogy of sticking a finger in the dike, that's what would happen.
But you say it reappears, but it would save you 1 year.
It would save you 1 year. It would postpone it a year, presuming that all materializes by year end, which we think we're pretty certain relative to those numbers. But we've always had a policy of, to the extent possible, trying to make expenditure reductions, commensurate with the loss of revenue. I mean, obviously, we could do more of that when our reserves were at 8 and 7%, but as you've seen in a multi-year projection, even at 10 million, we're barely hitting 3, and $10 million worth of cuts. So it might get us a little over 4. The problem's not going to go away. It's just going to be here the next year. So.
May I follow up on that?
Jarvis?
The problem in making just one-time cuts and expecting to get there is that over the multi-year projection, you see that we dig deeper and deeper into our reserve and into negative territory. If the board would prefer to take action on these items tonight, you certainly may.
Okay, but the answer to my question is, if this board wanted to, they could use part of that $1.5 million to temporarily fund part of that $10 million.
Yeah. What you would see on a multi-year projection, and we could simulate it next week, is that you would see that, we have to maintain the 3% in the current and subsequent year. You would see that we'd have a momentary blip where it helped us for a year, and then the structural deficit would reappear either at the same level or greater in the second subsequent year.
Okay. Second question, on the item number A, the Measure H issue, if we eliminated that from discussion, does that mean we need to go for 10,000,003? In essence, at 305,000, does that?
No, that's just one of the menu of items to get to 10 million.
But if we don't deal with it,
you deal with some other cut in lieu of that.
okay, so we could eliminate that, and it
You
wouldn't
could
affect
take it off, and it just eliminates one option.
The way I read it is somehow you'd still have to come up with some extra money for 20 to 1.
No.
Okay. I'll just make the comment that, and I just basically don't agree with the comments, evaluation, open to interpretation, the spirit. I've looked into it enough that there is no question on my mind that it was 20 to 1. So we either it seems to me we either bite the bullet and increase class sizes and keep the arts, music, etc., per the wishes of the voters, or we keep the 1 to 20 and reduce the arts and music in contradiction to the voters, or we keep faith with the voters, keep both, and deal with the 300,000 some other way. And I have a lot of information that I could share, but I won't, in substantiating my belief that the 20 to 1 was the intent, the spirit of the endeavor. So my preference would be that we not deal with A and keep it exactly like the wishes of the voters. You mentioned 3 scenarios, meaning, as I just heard your interpretation, sort of a priority of how we will bring things back. I'd like to have a 4th scenario of things we agree that won't come back unless this body decides they want to bring it back at some point. Because I think some of these items, and it goes along with a comment Dr. Sarvis made in Newshawk, is that we've seen nothing yet possibly. Next year could be even worse. And to set the stage where we're going to cut 10, but boy, we'll be good guys and give it all back, I think it's setting a false pretense if all of a sudden we're worse next year. I'd like to see a 4th column. Which of these items can we say, hey, we're going to cut these and they're going to be cut until we have the funds to do it at some point. The mere fact that we get $6 million from unification, it kills me that we get $6 million out of the sky and it's gone. It just rubs me the wrong way. If we can save some of that $6 million to build our reserves down the line, it's hard to get $6 million and spend it. I know we have to in many cases, but if there's some items that we can reserve some of that $3 million and not spend it, I would like to at least look into that. On item X, I guess I'm just curious, on administrative furlough days. We want 3 additional furlough days. And that evidently is equal to $71,000. We just gave back 2 furlough days, and that was $70,000. Why is 2 days and 3 days the same?
I'm looking at item X.
We say it's $71,004, but just 2 weeks ago, we gave 2 furloughs back, and it was like $70-some thousand that we gave back. I'm just curious, the number doesn't seem, and the same on reducing it by 8. That's 4 times what we just did at 70, which would be 280,000, and this is 189. It just doesn't seem that that number relates to what we did 2 weeks ago.
I'll check on that.
And then in summary, there are some things that really affect kids and students, and a priority, I would want to keep all of those off the table and see where we are, and then go from there. Thank you.
Ms. Lamone?
I'll just go in order of some of the things that I've been looking at. Item A. After looking at item A and going back a little bit, I actually concur with some of the comments that Mr. Herron said. I think because, unfortunately, this is probably not going to be the last time that we put a bond measure to the voters. If you go back and you look at some of the language in the past years, we did say 20-1. So I would like the board to think about that I want to make sure that the voters have some trust in us in moving anything forward in the future and not changing the spirit midway in. Having said that, I will say that perhaps we need to consider item A in a different manner. Maybe not in a menu option, but actually put it as an agenda item in and of itself, to look at some of that history, look at some of the language we said, and ensure that even the Oversight Committee has some of that information, because I think that that would be important as we move forward. So that's for the item A. Item B. Item B is a big possible cut, and it's still, this is on page 6, it's still not clear to me what programs would be affected with the $2 million. I see that the ones that are listed below are just some of those. If there was any way that we can get item B broken down, that would be most helpful. I noticed that from the past meeting to this meeting, it went from 3 million to 2 million, but I'm still not clear. If I were to vote on that, I'm not sure what I'm cutting. So I really would need to see the programs that we're cutting in that area in order to feel more comfortable moving forward. Moving on to item R, and I actually mentioned this to Mr. Smith earlier. Increasing class size in K through 3. I wonder if there's a way we can think about K and 1 and 2 and 3 different, specifically because K and 1, they don't know how to read, and increasing the class size is not good in K through 3 at all, but really in K through 1, we're going to see, unfortunately, I think, a huge negative impact. So if we can think about K through 1 differently and 2 to 3, I think that would be important to consider. And I'm just going to throw it out there. I don't know what impact it will have, but we also have some schools that are in program improvement. And I'm curious what it would look like if those schools, we thought about them a little bit different in K through 3. I'm not saying that that's how we would vote, but I want to know what it would look like. Moving on to item Z. I know I asked about this earlier. I don't know what item Z is, and I also see that in the administration, the numbers don't quite add up as to what they add up for classified and certificated. And they're not going to add up because the numbers are so different. The number of employees in administration and the numbers in classified and certificated are very different, but I'm not sure that that was the parity that I was at least thinking of. So I guess that X and Z might go together in some ways, and that might be a bigger cut.
Yeah, a couple of things. If I may, actually, I can address Board Member Herron's comment. Meg text, the furlough days involved all funds, where this only deals with the unrestricted general fund. So that's why you have a discrepancy among the numbers. And then one of the issues with parity, I think to look at parity, you kind of have to look at what baseline is on a comparative data basis among school districts. Historically, I think you'll find that we're extremely lean administratively. I'd like to see that comparatively versus the sectors of classified and certificated and like-size, like-type districts before you go and move on to the next step of analysis.
So if we could see that, that would be great.
May I ask for clarification? We had two board members who just commented on A, which is shifting 3.5 full-time equivalents from the unrestricted general fund to Measure H. Let me point out there are two different issues here. One is whether we staff those classes at 20-to-1, which I think is a given. But to my mind, the issue here is whether we pay for those additional teachers out of the general fund or out of Measure H funds, and if we pay for it out of Measure H funds, then it reduces the funding available to the other programs. And I didn't hear, and the others of you may want to weigh in on this as well, I didn't hear what the preference was, or maybe I just missed it.
My preference is clear. I don't want to increase class size in in ninth grade math from 1 to 20 to 1 to 30.
Well, good. That was the first issue.
Yeah, but I want to keep, and I want to keep all the art, music, and et cetera. I don't want to keep the 1 to 20, but reduce the art, music, et cetera. I want to keep faith with the voters and pay for the 1 to 20 out of unrestricted funds. I can't say it much clearer than that.
Okay, thank you.
And I would just like to perhaps explore the issue, and I'm not sure I have an opinion on how I want to pay in order to keep the arts and everything else and the 20, but I think that I will give one example. We had several folks in public office sign something that went out to the voters and say this is what the class is going to be like, that we're going to keep class size down and still have some of the arts. So perhaps look at the process of moving forward if we are going to take it out of Measure H in a different way. So I guess it's more of a protocol thing. Does that make sense?
Ms. Parker?
I guess I'll weigh in on that first, and then Ms. Limon, if you're through, I'll go ahead and run through my list.
Go for it.
The language of the measure, as I recall it, was about increasing offerings in the electives as well as going to 20-to-1. So I guess my basic question would be, even if we were reducing the amount we've been spending on the electives, will we still be spending more on electives than we had before the partial tax was passed?
I would think so.
And you don't necessarily need to answer that right now, but that is something that I'd want to know before any vote on it, because it could be, I mean, this is certainly one where we could tweak it so that maybe we went to 150,000, for example.
So the question is whether the elective course offerings would be supplemental above the baseline?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm guessing that they would be, certainly, because there is also kind of a chunk of money, and it changed from last year to this year, that was available for sites to do the math, science, and technology site plans, and that would either be, reduced or eliminated, but we could still keep probably most of the arts and music and all.
Okay. I'll go ahead and run through my list then. On B, the transferring the remaining 70% of the Tier 3 categoricals, I do want to note in the underlined area, that second paragraph that was added, the board actually did not request a number of these things. And you may have that as a recommendation for us, but I think that I would like to have that clarified in the language of the piece, that what we asked about, we actually, I don't feel like that we requested anybody be excluded at that point, but we just had questions about them, and only about some of them. My big question here is, we had a number of speakers, obviously, about our youth outreach worker, Ismael Huerta. He is currently paid through, is it the Pupil Retention Block Grant, and only through this year. I don't know that it was ever contemplated about extending his contract through next year. I mean, I think our first priority is trying to get it through this year. But it could be that I think that we should address that for next year and maybe this year at the same time. I mean, I don't know when, how quickly his contract ends.
Yes.
So
the funding for the position is already out, and he will continue through the end of March. And that's because we're continuing to fund it from the general fund.
Mm-hmm.
If you would like to add that as an additional expense and find other cuts, we can certainly consider that.
Well, I do think that should be on the menu as we're talking about it next week, and that's not necessarily part of Mr. Smith, you'll figure out how to tie those two together, because it wouldn't consider it part of the same action plan necessarily.
I would think it would be a separate item you were dealing with, because it's just contrary to everything else that's contained in the plan. And I guess I need a little bit of guidance on, is it the board's desire that I pull out all the underlying language there? I mean, because, we were taking notes, and it's hard to tell what was actually what the board wanted, and then we had discussions, and I think there's some other issues here with respect to item B in the underlined area, like the elementary music teacher, and I think Robin can speak to that.
Mm-hmm. This involves the parcel tax. This represents part of one elementary teacher's music teacher's position that is funded through a state grant. There was an art and music grant that started several years ago. We had to do a resolution here at the board, actually, that said we would spend all of that money toward one of our music teachers. So that was in place. That was part of the 2.5 baseline music program that we had going into the parcel tax. We made it very clear that we would not supplant and ever pay for any part of that 2.5 out of parcel tax. So in order to keep our music program going in the elementary district, if we actually swept this partial part of, I think it's only about maybe 50,000 now, I'm not quite sure what it is, we would have to use general fund, unrestricted general fund.
So there's a supplement versus the plan issue with Measure I there.
Exactly.
So
I think the clarification that I would like is simply for that paragraph to start off that and I'm assuming the 2.7 million total, that does already exclude the YSS.
That's correct.
Okay,
All
so
those
if that
things on that
excludes
line
those numbers, besides what Ms. Limon stated, which is, I agree that we need greater clarification, that's a lot of cutting, and beyond just saying teacher at this school, what exactly it is that we're cutting. I don't want to do that blindly. But also just to say that this list excludes the YSS counselors, the District 8 program, et cetera, so that we know that, and we can make a decision about whether we agree with that or not.
Would it be helpful if we did it in such a manner where we put this list excludes and then parenthetically after each thing what the dollar value is?
That would be fine, or it could be a separate exhibit at the back.
I'm going with the first one.
Okay.
I think so.
Nice next to it, that would be good. I absolutely agree with Ms. Limon that it would be helpful to look at K1 on letter R separately from grades 2 and 3. I don't want to increase class size to 30-to-1 K3 at all, but if we end up having to, I do agree that it's critical that there are still students that unfortunately can't read at second and third grade, but really K1, where the majority of students are getting their first instruction in reading, that it's critical for those class sizes to be smaller. Unfortunately, we have so many PI schools in the district that it's more like what schools are not program improvement would be the question. And I wish that we could go that way in terms of treating them differently, but my suspicion is that we're not going to be able to do that.
One note on that, and it may be waived because we are in this flexibility period, we need to check, but you have to start with first grade, then you go to second, and then you can add K or 3, and then you reduce in that same manner.
You reverse in that order.
So you can do smaller class size in first, but then it would have to be second?
The best way to look at it, if you were going to do a wholesale elimination, the way K3 CSR started, you had to implement in first, then second, then either or K3, and you've got to basically dismantle in reverse order. And so what Robin's saying is that if we're going to tweak things, we have immunity from that because we're in the flex period, but it could be problematic longitudinally if we don't do it right.
Interesting to find that out. I mean, with the flexibility right now, I really would prefer to stay at K1 if we have that flexibility.
You know, and then there's an argument whether we'd have it's just hard to say whether we'd have a grace period to transition out, and then there's some people argue that it's never going to come back. It's a rebenching.
Okay. Let me see. On W, the implementing the 5 or 10 furlough days for classified staff, you mentioned that it would not include confidential classified. Why? What's the reasoning behind that? And then I guess on any of the other items, are there employees that you're thinking would be exempt?
No, I think, and I'll have to clarify this with Meg, I want to make sure it's not included in the management number, but that's where we would include it because confidential generally falls management, not classified.
Okay, so that's
So
why.
I
So
will-
they would be getting furloughed, but they just.
But I need to make sure that there wasn't an oversight there, so I will, that's a good question.
Okay, thank you. One other question I had, we asked last week about the difference in staffing for San Marcos versus the other two high schools. If you could just talk about that a little bit, and is it strictly because their class sizes are smaller? Or is there some other reason why they're?
Well, I will start and let Brian talk a little bit. I will tell you contractually, you know, Santa Barbara High School and Dos Pueblos have the 35-to-1 average with the not to exceeds, and San Marcos has 33 average with not to exceeds. So that's the first part. There's a difference there. And then Brian?
That's true. There's a contractual difference, and that would have to be negotiated. The difference in units is really because the San Marcos teachers teach 6 classes a year as opposed to 5 classes, and out of consideration for that, we have this contractual difference of smaller class sizes at San Marcos. In fact, the average San Marcos senior this last year earned 287 units. But you know, earning so many units is really separate from the issue of parity and funding San Marcos versus the other schools. I've been in correspondence with the school over the last week, and the board at some point should consider that difference, and we may not, in light of the cutbacks that we're making, we may not, in light of that, want to maintain a differential in funding the school, but we would have to go back to negotiations in order to fix that.
In past years, however, we have negotiated waivers so that the class sizes were the same.
We have courtesy of the San Marcos staff. They have increased their size, the class sizes, but we're still left with the differential between San Marcos and the other two high schools.
Well, I would request that there be an item on there requesting that San Marcos have the same class size as the other two.
As a separate item.
And then my other question is, one of the things that I brought up last week was the idea of not just having a minimum number of units, but also having a maximum number of units. And if we rolled in a maximum number of units, Mr. Smith, would that change the dollar amount in T?
Perhaps I can address the issue of units in the first place. If we roll back the unit requirement and yet we still staff so that students can take 6 classes each semester for the 4 years, then even though they don't need as many units to graduate, it doesn't save us any money as a school district and still provides the students the same opportunities to take these classes. In order to save in the budget, we would actually have to roll back staff. We would actually have to reduce the number of classes that students were able to take. And it would mean something like 5 classes in the junior year, 5 classes in the senior year, rather than 6 classes all 4 years. We'd still have to meet minimum minute requirements, and that would be problematic. We would probably want to maintain 6 classes for any students who had failed classes in the past, but we would have to rethink scheduling altogether. This is not easily done.
Are you seeking advice from Ms. Jate, Mr. Smith?
No, I'm just, once again, it's the issue with the flex period, and we're living in a different environment. This is actually from the person who deals with our attendance accounting and instructional minutes, and it's actually a question that Board Member Herron asked me about earlier. Budget signed in earlier in July 2009 added Ed Code Section 46201.2 that states that commencing with 9/10 and continuing through 12/13, districts can reduce 5 school days and the minutes of 5 schools and not incur longer day and longer year penalties. So basically, once again, you've got a grace period, but it could potentially go away, although the governor is proposing 2 more years. So if you start monkeying around with reducing the instructional minutes lower than what the Ed Code prescribes normally, then we could have a rude awakening a couple years down the road. So that's just one issue. A secondary issue is, as Brian said, talking about putting the maximum unit cap and then also looking at reducing the number of units, whether it's from 240 to 220. I don't think we can do that in 1 year. It'd probably have to be a 4-year phase-in because you don't want unintended consequences for those students that are following one track. So it's not a simple issue, and I would recommend that we proceed cautiously on this. I think it's something that we really do need to study and probably really look at seriously, but I think we need to proceed cautiously because of the potential for unintended consequences.
The other part of this too is I was sitting with Meg Jate when she was calculating this number, and I believe it represents 4 years. And so going in, of course, we're not going to realize this figure. So we need to do some more work, I believe, until we get a figure that you could reasonably count on for next year.
It's probably going to be around 25% of the figure. I mean, if we just had a guesstimate, but we need to really crunch that a little bit.
Okay. I think that's it for me at this point. Thank you.
Let me add one related issue to that one. If we, for instance, were to go to our seniors and say, now you only need 230 units to graduate, then we run the risk, in fact, at one of the high schools we get quite a bit of this, we run the risk of students then in their spring semester deciding to take fewer classes than would cover a minimum instructional day, and we would not collect ADA for those students, and it might actually be counterproductive, especially if we rush into this just this next year.
Okay, Mrs. Deacon?
Let me start by thanking the people who spoke this evening and also the people that have been sending us lots of emails, because we have been reading and listening, and I just want you to know that. I also couldn't help but notice that no one is saying, save my job, but not the nurses. No one is saying, save my job, but not the counselors or the gardeners, the groundskeepers. But in fact, a number of people have been saying, if we have to experience pain, we should share it across the board. So for me, these issues of furloughs, as painful and as hard as they are, would be my first preference, to go there. Again, underscoring the hope that unification passes, which I think we feel pretty good about. We can't be certain, but we could, if unification passed and we only did 5 days for all the employee groups, everyone would lose some money, but no one would lose a job. And so I just want everyone to keep that in mind as we go forward, because it has to be negotiated, and I know, we can't negotiate here, but it's certainly on the forefront of my mind, and I know a lot of other districts have lived with furloughs, and colleagues have done that to save their peers. So let me address just some of the specifics here. I was very interested to hear the way the discussion evolved on Measure H, because most of the people that I know that supported it really were rooting for foreign language and music. They weren't necessarily rooting for lower math classes, although I think everyone believes that that's really important. So this is the first I've actually heard, let's take it off completely, but it sounds, Mr. Smith, like there might be some momentum in that area. I also had a question about the Tier 3 categoricals that some of you have raised, and I did speak with Mr. Smith about that today, so I have a little bit of a better understanding of what that looks like, but I absolutely think we need to see it spelled out, because we can't be voting on something that we don't know specifically what that means. Item C, I'll take in a minute, which is the mandated cost reimbursements. There are a few things here where I think we can right size, even if the furloughs were negotiated and we didn't lose any jobs. I actually think that I would rather protect our own staff, and so I would rather let go of the contracted nurses. So item M, you were looking for some direction, and Mr. Smith, I think Mr. Heron mentioned a column 4, things that we would do anyway. That would be one of those for me. We haven't really talked about the MAD Academy yet, but I think if we're going to bump up class sizes in other areas, or we already have, but that's something I think that, from an equity position we need to do. Regarding changing the number of units for graduation, and I was mindful of our speaker about the art classes, I'm hearing the sites believe this is going to be implemented differently than I think the district office staff has visualized it. And so I'm happy to hear that we're talking about phasing it in and looking at it very carefully, and I think I advocated before we need to convene a group of counselors and teachers and administrators and really look at the ramifications of this. It's not that I'm completely opposed to doing it in a graduated way, but I certainly do not want to lose a lot of the great elective choices that our students have. I mean, if we really educate the whole student, or we should, and we start lopping off some of these electives, and we've got students that are No Child Left Behind students that are, it's, math and language arts and some other subjects, but not the enrichment, which I think is really important. That takes me to the co-curricular stipends, and I think initially I had thought that the percentages meant we would just cut each stipend by that amount, but now I understand that's not the case, and I'm going to be really hard pressed to pick between mock trial and baseball or basketball or something like that. I mean, I just, I really, it's a fairly small amount, and again, if we went to the furloughs that hopefully would be reduced if unification passes, I would prefer not to go there as well. So I think that's pretty much it. Maybe some more clarification on the administrative position or positions at the district office would be helpful for me. Thanks.
Okay, well, thank you. I want to echo many of the comments that my colleagues have made, and also echo their appreciation for your being here. I know this is everybody's least favorite issue to have to come and grapple with, and we have been thrust into this situation repeatedly, and there doesn't seem to be much optimism for the near future, at least, letting up too much. So we may be back here again next year. But I do want to echo Ms. Deacon's comments that I appreciate that there seems to be a sentiment that people understand that this is a sort of a dire situation, and that everybody understands that we need to kind of share the pain, if you will, in terms of how we make these cuts. The problem is that we have to make the cuts. I mean, I would like to sit up here and tick off the list of all the things that I do not want to cut. But if I did that, I would not get to $10 million. And we have to get to $10 million. So we are going to have to come, my concern is we have to come back next week with a plan for how to get to $10 million. It's going to be difficult because I think our inclination is going to be to say not this, not this, not this, not this. But what we really need to start looking at is what is it going to be then? And if it's not going to be this, then what is it going to be? And we're going to have to get to that horrible number. I also was looking at if we looked at the furlough days and trying to avoid having to eliminate any staff, if we could, how that would help. So I think there are some areas where I've been able to look at it and say, I think I could possibly live with that. The item B, the categorical, the sweep of categorical Tier 3 funds, I'm inclined to say I think I could possibly live with that, but like my colleagues, I do feel like I need a little more clarification on exactly what it is that I'm going to be living with if we decide to do that. I agree with the issue of the MAD Academy. I think if we're looking at trying to reach parity in the different high schools, we're looking at trying to maintain class size in other areas, we need to probably look at staffing at a higher rate there. And if that requires coming back to that MOU, we definitely need to see that MOU. And so that's going to be important. I also think that looking at at the counselor-student ratio, I would like to look at the smaller numbers rather than the larger number that we have been maybe that has been being bandied about. If there's, I think we can look at some ranges. I'm looking at some of my other notes here. Oh, the school year, the length of the school year. That's another area that I think, depending, I would like to know a little bit more about that, talk a little bit more about how we might be able to do that, because I think that potentially that could work. However, I hesitate to throw that in because that becomes sort of on top of, if that becomes on top of other items like class size, increasing class size, et cetera, then it does tend to put a fair amount of the burden on faculty. And so I would like to see how we would balance that with other items that we would be approving or looking at. So I guess my concern is that I sort of challenged myself, and I hope that other board members will too, to come up with my scenarios of how I'm going to get to 6 million, how I'm going to get to 10 million, and what, what I think will work. And none of it is going to be painless. I do want to make one quick comment, though, and that is that I would like us to, maybe with the exception of the consultants, consider keeping all of these on a list to bring back. One of my concerns, and I think this as a teacher, one of my concerns is that in tough times, things get cut, and then they never get restored, even when things ease up a little bit. And then we end up again 2, 3, 5 years, 10 years down the line, and we have gutted our programs without necessarily ever intending to, sort of as a matter of survival, but we never get back to where we started. So I hope that we can, when we do make these cuts, we can make them with the intention that things will get restored as soon as we possibly can. And that this is not going to become our new baseline of, just business as usual. That it will, we see it as sort of a deficit model that we want to restore. So those would be my concerns. With that, if there's no additional comments, Ms. Parker?
Just one other thing, and that is when, I know that board members make a really token stipend, but I think I would, and it's going to have no effect whatsoever on the fiscal solvency plan, but I think that we should be included as well in any percentage pay cut. Obviously, we would not take furlough days, but I think that we should be equivalent to whatever the other employee groups are getting to. So I would ask that we be included.
Can I comment on that?
Oh.
Yeah, keep in mind it's a voluntary. As I said the last time we did this, if you're going to change it officially, you have to change the board bylaws. But if you make it voluntary, so if you do come up with a plan, I recommend that you start from day one as a voluntary.
Well, just a reminder, any board member at any time can opt not to take their stipend. I would reiterate my opposition to this on the basis of who it allows to serve and who it sort of encourages to serve. Going back to the concern that as it is, the stipend pretty much barely covers, I think, the cost of insurance for those people who want to get coverage from the district. I think it doesn't, it doesn't even quite cover it. So I would have no objections to this board making a decision for ourselves in terms of what we are willing to do for the salary, but I wouldn't be opposed to any decision that would carry beyond the individuals who are serving at this time.
Well, I would not be suggesting a change in board policy, and I wouldn't be suggesting anything like we've done in the past, where it's been, a 50% cut or 100% cut. But if it's the same as the other employee groups, I feel like at least that would match, and it is minimal, so.
Okay, so,
just a couple of comments. We talk about MAD, but is VADA in the same category? Do they have small class sizes?
No, I don't, no.
They don't, so they're not in the same.
They have traditionally, but
okay.
No longer.
One of the issues that came up on the reducing the high school graduation requirements is the number of just interesting classes that might be cut. I'd like to know how many classes will probably go away. How many types of classes would probably go away? What would be who would make the decision that we're going to get rid of an art class versus a shop class or something else? It just seems that by reducing that many electives, a lot of stuff that keeps kids interested in school will go away. Just curious.
Sure. Well, we'd use student balloting. That's how we determine what classes we're going to fly now. We do assign some students to some electives, and we know what the required courses are, but then we'd see which courses ballot at what levels.
Mrs. Parker?
Well, and just addressing that and going back to what Dr. Sarvis said earlier, reducing the number of credits required to graduate to 220 actually wouldn't necessarily save anything, and it doesn't require the cutting of any teachers. If
Right.
you have enough students that want to take the class, then you can run the class. It really is about what do we staff the schools at, and what do we provide for them with the idea that it only takes 220 units to graduate. I mean, normally in a staffing formula, you don't take into account the number of units required to graduate. So in a way, they're two separate things.
It just seems that the intent would be to eliminate some teachers, and then you wouldn't have the classes.
Yes,
So
and-
how is that decision made?
And as we see in, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Finish your
Well,
comments.
as we see in a
Dr.
lot of
Sarvis.
other districts, there are not 240 units required for graduation, yet there are 6 class periods provided, so those schools and school districts are fully staffed for 6 periods all the way through the student's career. What it does allow is some students who have failed classes, or right at the end, you typically get this senior reduction where they've taken an additional class somewhere along the line, and then they cut back to 5 classes in their spring semester of their senior year. That's very typical in other districts.
Can Mrs.
Ms.
Sawatsky-
Lamone, I'm sorry.
Can Mrs.
Mr.
Sawatsky briefly explain the benefit of an extra 15 minutes a day?
Well, really, if you think of it with, you're talking about reducing
If we
the,
reduce to 10 days,
Right.
that says we're going to also increase the day by 15 minutes.
right,
That's like
okay.
2 minutes a class in high
The
school.
easiest way I can share this is that when I was doing work on curriculum audits, we would go in and observe classrooms, and we would clock the time that there's the bell-to-bell to instruction and what the activities were going on during the classroom. And then we would show the bird's eye view to the staff about the minutes lost, potentially in transition or different things that are going on in a classroom where you're not using the instructional minutes that you're given. And when you multiply that over time and you see the number of days, and in this case, we're talking 5 full days, 10 full days, it's astounding. Staff goes, oh my gosh. I mean, you can do a lot when you look at it and represents 5 full days. So even though it's a few minutes every day, if you start nicking away at that, it does make a difference. So we want to keep the instructional minutes for our students and for our teachers. The requirements they have to cover not just the content standards now, but the Common Core that's coming, we need every minute we can get.
I think one thing is, Julie just texted me, the analysis says 15, but it averages out more to about 10 minutes per day. But the other issue, as I stated earlier, right now we're in this flex period, so we're immune from longer day, longer year penalties. So meaning that basically we don't have to meet the prescribed instructional minutes that are contained in the ed code, but once the flex period goes away, we will. And what I mean by the longer day, longer year penalties is that in 1982, when SB 813 was passed, districts were given an add-on to their revenue limit to basically lengthen the day in the school year. And so in the event that you don't meet those prescribed instructional minutes, you're penalized. Now, you aren't right now because we're in the flex period, and who knows when we emerge from the flex period. So it's just one more thing to consider.
Can
I'm
I
sorry,
make one more?
Ms.
I
Warsky?
just wanted to be really clear about the item about the reducing credits too. I wanted to add to the discussion on the electives. Of course, we would need to look at carefully how we would reduce that, but we would never reduce or not have the type of electives that you need for the UC, CSU requirements. There are certain categories of electives that you have to take through those A through G requirements. So we would be very careful to have those available to kids.
Thank you.
Ms. Lamone, I think you've been waiting.
Thanks. Mr. Smith, when we come back next week, is there any way you can star, or even on the page 16 chart, note which items need to be negotiated? I think I have a list of which ones need
Yeah, we can do that.
That would be helpful. And I also want to thank the staff. This is not easy. I know that you're in the same place as we are in not wanting to cut anything, and I think the leadership team has really pulled together to find a plan, not a plan that I know that none of you alike, but I appreciate all the work, and I know you've been getting emails and calls from all of us. And I think to all the folks that were here, and especially the students, I know these are really tough times, and I hope that we can be partners in the future and collaborate on really ensuring that we think about this tough issue at the state level. June's coming up. We're going to need your help. That same energy that we've invested in talking about the issues tonight in emails. I think today alone I got 40 emails. I really hope that come June elections, we will all be on the same team and move together to help our community understand why it's so important to put the tax extensions on the ballot in June and also to vote for them. So I look forward to collaborating with everyone that's been here to do that, because none of us want the worst case scenario, and we hope we don't have to go there.
Ms. Deacon?
Just one more thing going back to the number T, the credit unit. I know Ms. Parker asked how much we can put faith in that 684 number. Probably, I'd like to ask staff to come back and give us a number you have more confidence in. Okay. And then I would just like to say, following up on what Ms. Limon said, that our state senator, Tony Strickland, is the head of the caucus that opposes extending some of those taxes on the ballot. So, they're not even on the ballot yet for the voters to decide. So if there's anybody you want to contact who might make a difference, I would definitely recommend contacting your state senator.
Ms. Cordero, if I may follow up on that, I forwarded the board resolution to Tony Strickland. I sent Tony Strickland an email. I see that his website is set up so that people can enter in comments that are either favorable toward the governor's budget proposal or opposed to. And there's apparently some voting that's going on Tony Strickland's website. I would also encourage people to do that. I'm also meeting this next week with Mike Stoker as a representative from Tony Strickland.
Thank you, Dr. Sarvis.
I'd like to make one comment on the communication. You mentioned 40 emails, and I'd like to comment. I've never been so impressed with what I've received. It's not a mass effort to get a message out. I think every single email is different and gives a different perspective. Today I received an email from an employee of the district for 39 years, and he says, just ask me. I can help you save money with Marburg. I can help you save money with trash. I can help you save money with supplies. I mean, it's that kind of interest that I think is just tremendous, to have that kind of heartfelt email, and every one I received was the same kind of thing. They were all heartfelt. There might have been an effort to get them out, to email us. I don't think there was an effort to tell them what to say. I think they all spoke from their hearts. And that's what I appreciate more than anything else.
Thank you. Yes, we certainly have all been getting the emails, and I think, as Mr. Heron said, we've been reading them very carefully, precisely because they are heartfelt. They are informative. I've been taking notes as I read them, and printing them out and reviewing them, because a lot of them do have a great deal of information that is very useful. So I appreciate those that we've gotten from members of the staff, members of the public, and even our students. So with that, I think we will bring this discussion to a close. We will be back here again next week for the truly painful part. We will hopefully do the best that we possibly can to make the decisions that need to be made. I'm going to suggest that we take a 5-minute break and before we resume, and so we will adjourn to break at this point.
I guess I did.
Board Member Heron? Can we have, Mr. Herron, can we have you return to the dais? Don't think he's listening. I would like to reconvene the board meeting at this time. We will be moving on with our agenda to item D2, Special Education Update. At this time, Dr. Carrie Mills will provide the presentation.
Good evening. The first presentation that I have is the update on the staff Special Education Parent Advisory Committee. The reason these ladies are standing behind me is that they play vital parts and they're going to share in the presentation. So at this time, I would like to just introduce them. I have a parent chairperson who was elected by the group, elected by the parents, and that parent chairperson is Marcia Eichelberger. We also have a vice chair that was also elected in the event that Marcia is not available, and that is Lynn Rodriguez. And we have a parliamentarian to keep order in our group, and that person is appointed by me, and that was Kathy Abarca. Lovely. Appointed. All right, so I brought the guidelines to you last June that I developed for this group, and we're going to be kind of going off of that, but as required, we are bringing you an update of our activities today. So the FCMAT group had 5 main recommendations, which I have listed for you, and that is why they have those odd numbers of 35, 36, 37, and so on. Those are FCMAT action plan numbers. We've met 3 times so far to date. We've decided to meet approximately once a month, at least at the beginning, until we get going, so we're going to meet monthly. And we're going to just bring you a little update. So I'll start with number 35 and give you an update on that one. So the guidelines call for the co-facilitation of this group. So it's by the executive director as well as the parent chairperson. So that would be Marcia and I. The focus is a positive and collaborative focus, which we try very hard to maintain, and I think we have. We operate using ground rules that we've developed, and our parliamentarian makes sure that we adhere to our ground rules and keeps us on time. And we have interpreters available, so we have our staff secretary, Carolina Aguilar, serves as our interpreter for those parents that need that Spanish interpretation. Wanted to just give you a little brief history. In the past, as you know, the parents had an independent group called SEEK, and I also wanted to start a district advisory group, as was the FCMAT recommendation, but I wanted to ensure that we had a collaborative relationship with SEEK and that we were not in competition with one another. We have different goals. And so we worked very hard to achieve that, and I wanted to call on Kathy Abarca as the president of SEEK to just give you a little background on that.
Thank you, Dr. Mills. Hi, board. So from the very beginning that Dr. Mills decided to form this parent group, the parents of the SEEK have been very involved in collaborating with Dr. Mills, like from the very beginning. All of us decided that we wanted to make sure that this was going to be the best group possible. And it quickly became very apparent that there was actually a need for both groups, that SEEK should not go away and that the parent advisory group should maintain. And of course, they have 2 different sets of goals. SEEK's goal is about advocacy, mentoring, and training parents. And the parent advisory group's goals are leaning more towards general training, information, and education on the site level. And there's many of the SEEK members who are actually representing their individual schools there. But we are most, have always thought from the very beginning that it was important that everybody collaborated together. And I think it's very, very important that that collaboration continues. These parents that are in this group are not going to be mentoring other parents specifically. They're going to be giving out general information. So SEEK will continue to do its advocacy, mentoring, and education of the parents in regards to IEPs and educational goals, while the parent advisory group will then be, I guess, almost the mouthpiece for their schools. And I think Dr. Mills will go into more about that. But I just want to say thank you to the board and to Dr. Mills for the collaboration and for recognizing how important it is that we have both groups going. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kathy. And in our collaborative approach, I'm going to call on Marcia next to go over number 36.
Who would have thought several years ago that this was going to be your fun part of the agenda? That's what I want to say. Anyway, just to kind of go through a few of these points to highlight to everybody. First of all, I want to say that it has really been a wonderful experience to be able to stand up in front of you guys and try to express to you how much we appreciate Dr. Mills and her staff. They work incredibly, incredibly hard. I mean, I'm talking 16-hour days, and often without meals. I don't want to embarrass her, but it is really true. I mean, they're just working really, really hard, and so we just want to say as parents that we really, really appreciate that, and anyway, that's that. So we are hoping to be making quarterly reports to you to kind of give you updates on what we've been doing. During our meetings, any parent concerns that are discussed are global in nature. We don't discuss any individual cases. That was something that we laid a foundation very, very early on. And in the near future, in order to handle those kinds of situations, we're going to be providing all of the site reps with a department list of names and responsibilities and contact information for people. And that information will help the reps direct any parents who approach them on their sites with individual questions or concerns to the appropriate personnel at the district office. So I think that that will be a really good way to direct some of those situations that arise. To refresh your memory on how the site reps came to be, Dr. Mills had made a formal request of all of the principals to make recommendations to her, and we pretty much have reps from every single site now, which is really fantastic. And the goal of the committee is to work toward a balanced representation of disabilities, ages and grades, and ethnicities. And we realize that we only have a few meetings left until the end of this year, and we do know that it'll be interesting that there will be certain parents whose children are at certain schools, and they'll kind of rotate off, and so as that's happening, we'll try to be working with the principals to kind of help equally balance out our group. We also have the following individuals as additional representatives on our group. Our certificated staff rep is Debbie Rankin, who's the special education department chair at Monroe Elementary. Our classified staff is Paul Rooney, who is a special education instructional assistant at Santa Barbara Junior High, and he's also the CSEA president. Mike Vale, who is the principal at Cleveland, is our administrative rep. Our board liaison is Mrs. Susan Deacon. And I think that's about it for my section right now. But we really have enjoyed working with Dr. Mills and look forward to continuing to update you about some of the things we're going to do, which I'm going to pass the ball back to her.
Okay, thank you. Now I'm on number 38, if you want to follow along. So the FCMAT group recommended specific topics for the advisory group to cover. And so given that, I wanted the group to have a focus and at least have a topic that we could focus on as a beginning kind of project, something that would be worthwhile. So we sent out a survey for all of these topics, kind of to all the parents, and asked them to return it and ask them, what is your area of interest? Like, what is your top area that you would really like this group to work on? I only got 9 responses, and I actually sent it out twice, so I got 9 responses out of our group, and they pretty much were all over. There really wasn't anything that just stood out. So given that, and looking at the topics that they chose, I thought of a new topic completely. And that was the assistive technology that we have really been focusing on in our department, and you will recall that Kirsten Escobedo, our elementary director, and Debbie Keys-Thomas, our secondary program specialist, provided that update for you last time. So given this, in thinking about how to tie the group together, I really noticed that some of the members had a lot of experience in special education. A lot of the members had been SEEK members before and had a lot of experience, while others really needed more of a base in special ed. So I decided, at least initially, to do a presentation at each of our meetings. And so I asked Kirsten and Debbie to provide the same presentation that you saw on assistive technology at our last presentation. So each time I give the group an assignment, you can tell I used to be a teacher probably, but I give the group an assignment, and the reason for the assignment is that they take whatever it is that we've been talking about, the presentation for example, then they go back to their site, discuss with their site administrator what is relevant, what we've shared, what is relevant about that. And for assistive technology, for example, John Shetler, who's another one of our program specialists, offered to develop a survey, kind of an inventory instrument, for the parents to take back to the site, find out what they had at the site already. So what do you have already in assistive technology, and what do you really need? And what are your priority areas as to what you really need? And my hope in that, at our next meeting, they'll come back with their assignment. Hopefully they will have results to report, and that I'd really like to focus and use some of our ARA funds to provide the staff with at least a little bit of the assistive technology that we can afford to provide for them. At least give them a start. It might be anywhere from computers that work in the special education classroom to software or any number of things, but what we found is when we have the specialized software, we don't have the computers that are up to date enough to run the software, so we might have to start back at the foundation. But anyway, so we're very excited about that. Going back, I think I skipped our first assignment, and our first assignment was just basically go back to the site, talk with your site administrator, find out how you're going to be introduced to your site as the parent representative, and then come back and share how you're going to be introduced to your site and what you're going to do at your site. So with that, I wanted to call on Lynn Rodriguez to give us an example of what she did on her first assignment at San Marcos High School.
Thank you, Dr. Mills, and good evening, everyone. And it is funny that special ed is taking this back seat to budget cuts right now in terms of the stress level. I would, first of all, also like to thank everyone, the staff and the board, for the progress that's been made in these areas pretty much across the board in special ed. I mean, Marcia and I have both been in this district for a long time. You know, my daughter's a sophomore now, and you know, it's just phenomenal, the improvements that have been made and the difference it's making at the school, so I appreciate that. Being a high school rep, it's a little different ballgame than elementary in the fact that there's a lot more students at the school, a lot more staff involved, and I'm still really new to the realm of being a special ed parent at the high school level. But at San Marcos, we had built on a great foundation of programs that were in the tradition of Debbie Keys-Thomas and others who worked there for many years to create a wonderful program. I was fortunate enough to walk into that. And yet there were some things that could use some work. And so the first step that I took, we sat down with the administrative staff assistant principal, the department chair, the special ed, one of the special ed teachers, myself, and decided that we wanted to create a really strong parent committee on campus so that that would be a way for myself as the rep and also for the site staff or for the administrative staff to have this communication that goes beyond just me coming back and saying, here's what we did at our meeting and give me some input, but actually takes it the next step further and gets a real site-based program going. And I think what I really want to say is that we had all these great things happening at the county, at the district-wide level that you guys have made possible. Now we really probably need to boost and strengthen our site-level activities. And really that's where most parents are going to connect, is at their site, not, no offense, but what goes on at the district level doesn't always reach the individual parents. So we're building that. We've had our first parent meeting that was held for only half an hour right before back to school night for the second semester for San Marcos, since we're on the block schedule. And it was very successful. We had a good number of parents there. I'm very excited to see the enthusiasm of the parents. We have an interpreter that's actually an instructional assistant, so she's bilingual and is really excited about this. She's been at the school for a number of years and really wants to see us build our program. So, and then we have a meeting scheduled on Friday afternoon to have dialogue back and forth about what happened at our last the district-wide parent meeting, and we have our next site parent meeting scheduled for Monday the 7th next week. So we're really making progress, a lot of interest in networking just among the parents, getting more information, and working together really in partnership. I think that's really a key thing, that we do have parents at the sites that sometimes feel a little left out or out of the loop because they don't have access to some of the information, or they either don't avail themselves or don't have the resources or whatever. So we're really trying to fix that and work with those parents and answer questions that they might have and get all the staff at the site working together, and then to fold ourselves into the PTSA and ELAC and other groups on campus so that we have a bond, campus-wide, and that our kids in special ed are really fully included as much as possible. So we have multiple goals going on. Assistive technology is going to be a huge help for us. We're one of the sites that's working with Solo that Debbie Keys-Thomas presented to you at the last meeting. And that assistive technology is the key to better inclusion, and I'm very excited about, I'm seeing my daughter benefit from that. So I'm really excited and looking forward to moving ahead. Thank you.
Okay. So to wrap her up, the one thing that we are going to look into, we're going to, I'm sorry.
Do your example at Santa Barbara High School.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
Okay,
Do that,
okay.
and then we'll get,
Okay.
and then I have a little part.
Okay. Sorry. I think Carrie just wanted me to talk a little bit about what I did at Santa Barbara High. And basically, I got a lot of support from Dr. Capretto. I went in and I met with he and the program specialist, Donna Harris, who is on site there, and just told them what we were doing. They were very interested, supportive. And he basically said, I'll do whatever you want to do to announce your existence, which was kind of scary because, there's a lot of people out there. So, but he offered to use Teleparent, to email, to put it in the newsletter. Anybody that doesn't get email, he said he would do a mailing. He just was really, really supportive. And so I was very appreciative of his time and suggestions and suggesting how we can get more Latino parents to participate, which was something that is a concern of mine. And so all in all, it was very successful, and I have another meeting scheduled with him this Thursday. So.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so just to tie up the end of number 38, I just wanted to share with you, I have a long-term goal, and it's probably a dream, but just wanted to share it with you a little bit. In the last SELPA that I worked in, there was an assistive technology center that was developed, and kind of the way that came about was that parents, there were 19 districts in that SELPA, but none of the districts could afford to have an assistive technology center on their own. And there were only the SELPA parent group in the district that I was in, and the high school parent group. The three parent groups decided that they would have a common goal and look at funding an assistive technology center. So they joined together. they did a lot of parent fundraising events, big events, and they actually made it happen. So they developed an assistive technology center. We used a classroom that was on a county site, so we didn't have to have that additional cost for the room. We hired a county speech therapist who was also an incredible assistive technology specialist, and he was designated to run the center. And so we had, our first year we just started with some basic equipment. We did all of our assessments in that center for all of the districts. Parents were allowed to go there, try out different equipment. Districts were allowed to borrow equipment so that we wouldn't have to, buy equipment that might not actually work. So we could borrow equipment for a while on a trial basis. Parents were also allowed to check equipment out, and they could try it with their kids at home. It was really a pretty incredible resource, and the parents funded it all on their own. So each year, the parents thought it was so worthwhile that they continued this. Was really successful. It built over the years. We got more equipment each year. We got added staff. When I was leaving to come here, I think that the districts felt it was so valuable that they decided to start contributing to that and have the parents kind of back out and have the districts pay more as kind of like a bill back at the county office type of model. But anyway, it was really successful, and I just have that dream for us. So that's it. And number 73, I'm going to pass it back to Marcia.
Okay, so finally, we as the parent committee feel that it's very, very important for us to find a way to honor all of our special education staff who work so hard throughout the year. And so on our next agenda, we are going to look for people who would be interested in sitting on a subcommittee to help plan a staff special education recognition event. And as I said, we just really want to take an opportunity to honor all of those people who are dedicated to our kids and who work so hard throughout the year to do that. So be looking forward to doing something, and I hope you'll all join us for that. And I think with that, I just want to thank you all very much for your time and for your support of the committee and for your support throughout the past couple of years for special education. We appreciate it very much. Thank you.
And just, I don't know if I'm allowed to do this, but I have one binder that we started. Our intent is to give each parent representative and staff representative a binder that will have some handy information. And so I just started a binder. I only have one, and I'm happy to pass it out if you'd like to see the beginnings of it.
Sure.
Or not, if that's okay.
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right. I'll just take all my little notes out, and then I'll let you take a look.
Okay, I believe we have a couple of public comments.
Yes, we do. Kate Smith, followed by Lourdes Uribe.
Okay, so I just want to remind you that this is comments on the special plan update, the special education update, and not just special education in general. Thank you, Ms. Smith. We are going to begin starting your time now.
Just a little background on this school district's CPAC. 8 years ago, a parent advisory committee was convened with Special Administrator David Gilbertson leading the group called CPAC. Jeff Gabrielson was the special ed director, and he quit that year because there were serious problems. The committee members included Michelle Britton-Bass, who was the education department chair from Antioch, and two of the people that just spoke were on this committee. And we were so good at demanding IDEA compliance that Brian Sarvis, when he came to power, the first thing he did was to disband this group. But the program that you just heard, where there would be a special education. I know, he thinks that's so funny. I don't know why, but if you could show him laughing, that would be good. Anyway, this was the program that we had hoped for. There would be a CPAC in each school that would be a parent support group for those people in special ed. And I also, just for your edification, want you to know that Dr. Carrie Mills, did she leave? Oh, hi. She comes highly recommended by the top special ed lawyers in the United States. She is known, and we have great hopes for this new model of special ed. But there is a serious problem. So first, I'd like to sign up to be the parent rep for Santa Barbara City College Transition Program. I have been, there are some wonderful staff members there, but there are some serious concerns. It's a Fleming Williams, and there's a ramp that if a child is in a wheelchair, it leads right down into the parking lot. Unfortunately, my daughter is now in a wheelchair. She fractured her ankle last week, and I tried very hard to talk to Carrie Mills or anybody in special ed, anybody, because my daughter was not placed in a cast until Friday, so she needed home hospital.
30 seconds.
I was not allowed to talk to anybody. Now I'm trying to get an emergency IEP because she's in a cast. So kickboxing, walk, jog, and swimming are out. And I got a letter from the school district. Incredibly enough, it says, we know you've been trying to talk to Carrie Mills. We know you have a right to talk to Carrie Mills, but you may not talk to Carrie Mills. You have to write a letter to Robin Sawowski. So I fear for my daughter.
Mrs. Smith.
I fear for my daughter. They didn't even send
Ms.
it
Smith,
to
you
Carrie
are
Mills. Do you understand?
You are out of order now. Please step away from the podium.
Actually, under
And our
ADA,
next
because
speaker will
I'm very
continue.
upset, and ADA, I'm supposed to be allowed enough
Smith,
time
can you please
to
stop
talk to you.
now?
But obviously, you don't.
Be out of order too. I'm a primarily Spanish-speaking person. I consider myself an intelligent person also. Basic things regarding, still the, what is it, that it was presented as. Like, for example, very basic procedures of doing a special education. Dr. Mills presented the name of Carolina Aguilar or something like that. Wonderful person. We asked her for school records, to proceed with a due process hearing for my son who's in high school. You might want to take these papers or throw them away. My son is a special education student in IEP classes at Dos Pueblos High School. I wish this wonderful committee will come to Dos Pueblos High School. I didn't hear anything about Dos Pueblos, a wonderful school with wonderful people. I'm a member of the PTA subcommittees, and I'm very, very involved. I'm friend with the principal, assistant principal. My son is not having the support in AP classes. They want him back in special ed classes, regular classes, Latino classes, whatever you want to call them. And he prefers to get a good education so he can come maybe and be a superintendent of a district or something. They're refusing to review the reasons why he is failing classes in AP. I don't know who was involved in that decision, but the name of Carrie Mills, is saying that, she totally supports that my son doesn't get support and doesn't get help and assistance. I don't know what that has to do with anything, to be honest with you, and I can sit down right now and stop talking. As a matter of fact, I need to go and help my son to bed because he's having serious emotional problems because of the way things are dealt in school. I was referred to Dr. Mills, the two assistant superintendent, to challenge, that decision. I don't know how to go about that. I just know that I missed a consultation with the attorney to start up due process hearing because the special ed department didn't have my records ready in 5 working days. I don't understand that also. they used to be good at getting records, you know, for people who wanted to do the process. So thank you so very much, and I'm sorry if I'm out of order.
Thank you, Mrs. Uribe.
Sorry. Any comments or questions from the board? Okay, thank you very much. Dr. Mills, you will be presenting our next item to us as well.
Yes, I'd like to just give you a brief update on the special education procedural manuals. So we brought this item to you before. We finally finished all of our editing, all of our input, and the manuals are out. This relates to FCMAT Action Plan item 67, so that's one item. But I do have the manual. If I can just pass it really quick, you can just take a quick look. So the plan is that every site will receive a binder. It's in the binder format so that it can be updated, amended easily, and so on. Big thanks to Dr. Carol Miller. She really worked hard helping us get that together, so really big thanks to her. And it's on the instructional assistant handbook is on the website, and the certificated handbook is on the intranet. So I will entertain any questions.
Well, a brief glance looks very, very comprehensive. So, so I'm sure it'll be a welcome addition to the site. Board member comment or questions?
Just curious, is it in Spanish also?
This one is not. Is it going to be?
It is not. It's a staff document, and so it is. I haven't had the need to have it translated.
I would imagine that most of our staff is probably doesn't need it translated.
No. Oh, that one, you know, everything we do is translated in Spanish on the Parent Advisory Committee. So everything, every agenda I send out, all the minutes, everything is translated in Spanish on that one, just not on the staff handbook.
I think, you guys probably know too that the SELPA has the parents' rights, and it's in English and Spanish, and those are documents that all parents get and have access to.
Right.
Okay.
May I just?
Well, oh.
I'm just looking forward to
Parker?
seeing some more checks in those boxes when we get the big project printout about how things are going.
Yes,
So,
the update.
yeah, this really looks terrific right off the bat. So, thank you. And thank you to Dr. Miller too.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. We will continue to peruse it, and I'm sure board members may have comments or questions for you after they get a chance to look through it, and they can contact you or your office directly.
Sure.
So thank you very much.
Thank you.
That brings us to the close of our meeting. We do not have our usual additions at the end of the meeting, so this just brings us to adjournment. I do want to point out that we have another special board meeting this Friday at 12 o'clock, where we will be meeting with the consultant for the superintendent search. And then our next regular board meeting will be next Tuesday, a week from today, March 8th, here at 6:30. So thank you very much. We look forward to seeing each other quite a bit in the coming weeks. And with that, I will adjourn.